It's nice and sunny here for a few seconds. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed my weather. Anyway, I have a new cuckoo clock, and this one is special. And I'm going to dedicate this clock to Mark, in which I'll leave his link down below. He has a lot of short videos, but some of his videos, actually, there's things to learn on working on clocks, and such as, for example, that's where I got my new way of making my movement cleaning fluid for my sonic cleaner. There's quite a few little jots that he puts in there that if you're working on clocks that he thinks out of the box sometimes, and that's a good thing. So this is a clock, got it from GW, and these New England clocks are mainly showing their little pocket place here where you can put fake leaves, whatever, but that's their style of clock. And I was wanting one that was a cuckoo clock just because it was different. And he has a video on working on these clocks also. So this clock, besides, you can see it's really, I don't know, that's dirty or just been cleaning the varnishes, or we'll call it the varnishes coming off, or what that is. But obvious when you get these clocks from GW, most of them are dirty and they just didn't want to deal with it anymore. Now up on top here, I don't know that much about it yet, but I think this is supposed to have a bird on here. And it did come with another package that has the birds in here. So you have that bird, and this bird I do believe is the one that goes to that top piece that goes on here. And then you have this bird. I think it's the one that's supposed to hook on here, I'm going to guess. And there must be another bird there. I have no idea. So you have two birds like this. And I do believe there's a pendulum that's supposed to go with this that might have the bird on it as well. So as usual, I haven't looked at this clock. You're looking at the same time I am. This does have the cuckoo bird in there. This does have a paper in here showing what type of clock this is. And to my understanding, watching Mark's video, looks like you take these two screws out in the bottom here and this whole box will come out. But for right now, let's try to look inside here and see what we have. So here, by the looks of it, both of those seem to work. Like I say, I don't see the pendulum here. I'll have to check the box, but I don't think it was there. And it did come with the two weights. So obviously, the 8-day clock, I don't know how much these things weigh. But there's two of them, and they wrapped those in bubble wrap, then wrapped it in with the clock, which I'm surprised there wasn't any damage from them beating around, but they were wrapped, just not secured down. So anyway, let me go ahead and take those two screws out. But first we'll go ahead and take the hands off, and we'll loosen the bird so all this will come out. But by the looks of it, this all comes out anyway as one piece. So just in case, we'll take this apart. So in taking the hands off, the minute hand had the nut on top, pull the minute hand off, and then the next one unscrews so that way you can cause pressure on your centerpiece, which is probably what holds these hands tight and makes the alarm and everything else go off. And then this one here, that was really loose. You just need to be snugged down. It's just wedged on just like a normal cuckoo clock. And that wire's a little bit tougher than your normal wires. There, he's inside. So I'll go ahead and take those two screws out of the bottom and we'll go from there. I got the two screws out. Let's see if it just lifts up through or what it does. Okay, we have a screw here and a screw here I need to take out. I took those two screws out and I also took this metal bracket off that you hang the clock from. And this should come out now. And there we go, we're free from the box. That seems to hold. Let's see if it ticks. It does tick. Now this clock might not need to be cleaned. Looks like someone's cleaned it before, in which I could care less. It used to have a varnish on the works and some of it didn't come off. But I don't know how clean this is or whether it's been oiled. And so I'm going to go ahead and go through this anyway to get it fresh. So right now, because I don't have the rest of the nuts on there, this thing's just willy-nilly. It did cuckoo. So that's actually turning pretty easy. Now this here is willy-nilly, as it just spins how it wants, because that's why that back nut goes on, and then this, and then your front nut here sandwiches it in there, and that's usually what's going to cause this to be tighter and move the mechanism as needed to make this thing cuckoo properly. So the first thing I'm going to do here pendulum, we'll call it, rod off. You just open that up a little bit inside there. And it comes right out. This has a touch of rust or dirt or whatever you want to call it on here. Not bad though. And let's see here. I think I'm going to go ahead and take the bellows out. The whistle boxes. Now this is a tight fit in here because the bottom of the bellow itself is almost resting on the movement. Okay, so now that that's out, there's a nail here, and so what you want to do is, we'll say, pry it. Then you unhook the wire because of the end there. And like I say, these are in good shape, besides being a little bit dusty. And we'll keep the wire with it. We'll measure the two wires together and see if they're the same size or not. But for now, let's just hook it together. Okay, here you can see the one on the right side is way shorter of a wire, so it's not going to be that hard to or it's going to be hard to get them mixed up, I'll put it that way. Now it doesn't hurt, especially if you're new at this. Take your screw that came from the belt, the whistle box, and stick it back in, so that way you know for a fact that's where it belongs. Now the 4 screws that hold the movement in, they're going to be a different screw, and then the screws that screw this box in are obviously not going to be something you screw in here, but that's beside the point. If this is your first time taking this thing apart, it's best just to stick the screws to where you will easily remember and not be stressing out. So what I want to do now is go ahead and disconnect these ends of the chain. This here is a bigger chain, but I can still pull it apart, and if I can pull it apart, I'd rather do that. On some of your heavier chains, you'll want to put pliers on one side and the pliers on the other side, then give it a twist, because that might be easier, and still might be easier for you if you do it that way. I prefer to stretch it open. And these rings here, they're meant to make it so this doesn't go clear up in the box and hit the ends of the, we'll call it the hook here, which helps prevent damage of this and wanting to cut up in there compared to the round disc. So that's a cool feature there. So when I took the hook part off, I went ahead and left the ring on too and came to the end so that could be all one piece. I don't have to mess with having to take the ring out and everything else. Got those undone. I should be able to, let's just call it, wind this clock up. And actually I'm going to do is pull the chain out. And the chain's in pretty good condition. It needs clean, but it's in pretty good condition. This movement, which so far I've found is odd. You have the 4 screws, you have one more sitting off to the side. Like I say, I've never seen such a thing, but that's their clock company that wanted to do that. So it pretty much looks the same. There's a few, like this silver colored rod here. Normally your grandfather movements, that kind of stuff, has those. So anyway, this is pretty much a simple box that fits inside the clock, which kind of makes it unique, I guess. So you don't have to deal with that whole box. You're just dealing with the actual box that the Cuckoo movement fits in. So as usual, this clock might have ran just fine, but I want to go through it and make sure it's done so I don't have to deal with it later. But if you're new at this kind of stuff, and if this clock runs, there's a chance maybe you still want to take it out and oil it and then just put it back in the clock and let it run. Because according to the book, it says as long as you have this clock running and you oil it, you're fine. If this clock freezes up because of old oil, lack of oiling, or whatever, they suggest you clean it because now it's all gummed up. So if this clock runs just fine, which it looks like more than likely it would have, you would have been fine. So on this clock here, this here where the cuckoo bird is, it's got this rod here. Now this here, what does it say? I think it's 1967. So it's kind of a nice thing that you can still get these, but I don't know if you can special order them, but there are people that sell these online. This here is nice because you need this type of a rod for your other cuckoo clocks that have just the cuckoo bird or the musical that's made pre-50s with the time wheel that's on there, in which I do did have one that's bad. Well, actually, I've had two that's bad, but I finally ordered, the last order was two, so I have one extra because I work on a lot of those clocks. So that's nice to see that. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take these two C clamps, or what do you want to call them, off of there, so you can start getting this apart. Once we get those two off, we'll take pictures of this to see which one actually needs to go in first. But that's another thing too. Make sure to get pictures, clear pictures, plenty of light pictures of all four sides, the top and the bottom, and make sure you can see, such as for example here, you can see that the gears on top here and the gears on the bottom here. You need to know how and what the gears look like to get it back in here. And I could be wrong, this looks like a pretty simple clock inside. So let me get these clips off and we'll take that apart. Now that I got them off, these two pieces should be able to come off just fine. They normally tangle up together, is why I take them off together. Now as you're taking these off, before you start taking this apart, the insides, get a picture of all your pieces. Get a picture of all your pieces that are on the outside, so that way you don't start feeling overwhelmed because you have so many pieces to the clock. So here, another thing to pay attention to, this clock's fine, but this barrel here, that's attached to the clock. Make sure it's on there. Some clocks, this here is not attached, it's a separate piece on there. And if you don't know it, when you're turning your clock back and forth, you're liable to lose that piece that fits on there, and you're gonna have to build up, if you can't find it, you're gonna have to build up some small nuts or washers or something on here in order to get the right height for that gear to touch there. So to get these off, go ahead and take a picture of this too so you can see where they're sitting. And by the looks of it, this silver one's the one you'll want to put on first, and then the black one when you're reinstalling this. But that's why it's good to get a picture to figure out which one goes where or should be on next. But to take those off after your picture, on the back side you have the little C clips in here also. It just so happens to be this actually comes off, which is kind of nice. It's not pressed on, and this is what tells a clock to cuckoo. One side's shorter and one side's taller, so that way it knows on these, if it only lifts up just a little ways, it's not going to trigger it to cuckoo however many hours it is, because it's still on the half hour. And then the taller one will trigger it even higher, and that's what causes it to drop onto the snail, so it knows what time it is to cuckoo out loud. So anyway, I got these C clips or E clips or what they call them off. So there's that one, and this one's, like I say, the reason why it's got to go on first is because it's kind of hidden behind stuff, and you want to not fight everything. So those are off. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the wire to the gong, and we'll take those out. Wire disconnected off that little metal piece there. So you turn this around, and on here you have one that locks it in place and one that will hit the star wheel, which this one I don't think has a star wheel, which I'll show you a little bit later. It has a bunch of pins around on it. So normally you got to take that one out first, then you go to your next one, swing it around. You can see the smaller one right there. That's the one. The smaller one's the one that locks it into place. And the little bit taller one, or the one further in, that's the one that'll hit the peg that operates this. And of course, pay attention, you had your gong, you had your shorter lift arm, and this is the longer lift arm on this clock. I'm going to take it off anyway because it has something to do with that rod there, and trying to put that rod in might be a pain. And it's actually not a big deal one way or another as long as these come off. Okay, they're off. Now let's go ahead. You got your choice of using a dish. You set this on, 5-legged, or if you happen to have these, which I don't know why you would unless you work on clocks, this here is just something to waste your money on that makes your life a little bit easier, I guess we'll say, taking this thing apart. And I like the idea of it is because I can show you, well, a nice way of getting better pictures of your movement gears, so that way you can get this thing back together. You should line up all this stuff on the side here to show what the gears look like and everything. Then take a picture of it, because this is the stuff that goes on last after you get the inside of this done. And this way you have less gears that are trying to confuse you, or less pieces that are trying to confuse you. And then once you get this together, then you can bring them in. This is after it's all cleaned. They're all going to be mixed together, and you need to know what they look like to get them set aside. Okay, I also had to pry this little rod out. It had this brass piece on here because that was locking these two plates together here, and I want to get this lifted totally off. So we have the 3 nuts off, taking the 4th one off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to carefully take this apart so that way we can get a picture of the gears. And of course this pendulum part, it's going to come off. You can't stop it because the plates are in the way. Plates are going to make it want to come off. See? So here, this here actually looks, besides a little tarnished or whatever, it looks pretty clean. Not seeing any oil. Like I say, whether this is cleaned and oiled or just cleaned or what, I don't know, but it looks pretty dry to me. So here, these little pins here, that's what's operating the gong and the 2 arms that operate the lift wires to the bellows. So anyway, I got this off, let's say perfectly. Now's the time to get a picture so you can see where everything sets. So when you put it back together again, you have a little bit clearer picture of what your gears look like. Okay, let's start taking this apart. This is the time side. So let's see what we can get off of here. That's clicking really nice. It's going to get clean, but it's clicking really nice. I don't think this one comes off. Yeah, it does. You can see it's dusty in there. I think they call it the escape wheel. Like I say, pictures helps to know whether that gear goes up or does it go down. If you mess up, who cares? You can change it. It's not going to kill anybody. That there goes to the time side, in which there is a gear still left here that looks like you unscrew it. So that'll be another picture to take as you're putting it together. That'll have to be the first thing that goes in. So here is good to get a picture of this to see there's a gear there and this fits in between or whatever. See, all this feels pretty dry, so it's like they cleaned it but didn't oil it. Although you can see it looks kind of dirty clear inside here. That one won't come off. I'll show you why in a minute. And there's the one that operates the fan and has that little wire there for a trigger to be caught. And this, let's see here. This one won't come out until I take that out. And this one has this on here that counts the hour or whatever. I'm not taking that off. It's not important because it's normally loose in here anyway, so it can get cleaned, it can get oiled, and if there's anything caught in there, it's not going to be any big deal. I did notice that they put a little bit of grease on the end of here, but like I say, I don't think this has actually ever been oiled the last time whoever got into it. So let me take these two screws out and we'll get that gear out. And obvious, this probably never gets oiled because it's hidden, so you'll want to oil something like this as you're putting it together. I shined them up a little bit. You see some scratches on here, but tried to get the finish off of here. You can see the old finish there. Hard to get off, but it's off. It looks better than what it did. Now to get this back together again. Now that I have it all together, tighten the nuts, I'm going to go ahead and oil it now, because before you put all these outer parts on, you might miss some of the places to oil. So now's the best time to oil, in my opinion. So you want to put a drop. This here oiler, need to fill it up again, but it has a little bit of oil in it. It will dump the oil out, and then it'll suck it back up. And if it doesn't suck it up, I can use a tissue to dry up any spots that has too much oil, or the oiler that you use. If you get too much oil, you can use a tissue to dry it up. I forgot this, so it belongs right in here, so I have to take it apart just a little bit and pop those in and get it back together again. This goes in first, down in there. And now to put the C-clip on the inside there. And next this one, I'll put down in there, and then the C-clip again will go right there on the inside of this framework. Trying to find out or make sure of is that this here, when it strikes 12, it's going to miss this plate coming up, the snail here. So it's dropping down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now let's see what happens on the half hour and the 1 o'clock, whether we need to move this. There's the half hour. Bring this up to 1 o'clock. So it actually went too far, so this plate, the snail here, needs to be moved over at least 1 tooth over. And that's why I didn't put anything on there yet. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's a half hour. It comes the hour. It drops all the way down nicely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Get our half hour. There's our half hour. Now you can see how this here is able to pass to do our 1 o'clock. There's 1 o'clock. There's our half hour. And this should be our 2 o'clock. 1, 2. Beautiful. But I gotta oil these first. So to get these back in again, we need the longest arm. Slide it in there. Once it's hooked up, you can bring it around. The next arm, which is a little bit shorter. And then the gong. Now go ahead and hook up the gong spring on that little rod that they provided me. So now we need to put the cuckoo bird on. You have these 2 little plates here, and on the plates, one's got a smaller hole and one's got a larger hole. The smaller hole will go to the bottom, so that way the rod just fits right in there. And get your rod on the right side of that lever. It goes on the inside. So this is the first that the spring actually just sets behind the plate. That's how it was, and it seems to work just fine. You don't need to snap. I mean, you want the door to shut, that's for sure. So the next thing you do is put this in, and this here just taps over the end of that, and that's what's going to hold this bird in, out, however you want to put it. Well, now that I got this all put back together again, and this is a separate piece from the actual body of the clock, I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick wax job. It's in really good shape, but just saying, well, you can see a little bit of cracking maybe going on there. It's nice to get a little bit of moisture back in the clock, and so that's why I'm going to wax this. I will not wax this paper part, but I will wax the box itself. Okay, I installed the bird. He's probably not where he's supposed to be, but it's on there because it's going to be kind of tight to get in there. We're going to just set it in here, see how it sets, and also get this movement into place. Okay, I think things are looking good. I'm going to go ahead and get those 4 screws in so we can lift this up and see how the bird looks. Bird seems to be sitting fine. This wire for the door is almost hitting the doorway. but it looks like it's opening and closing just fine, so we're going to call that good. I'm using a little box down below because you do have the hour hand or the hand shaft sticking out, and that's not a good thing to be setting it on it. So we're going to install the bellow. You just hook this on there, and the right side takes the longer shaft. So try to hook that on there. It quits moving on me. Once it's hooked on, slide this into place. Get that nail back in the hole of what it originally was. Then we'll try to find our screw hole. And there we go, it's on there. So we'll do the same with the other side. Got them both on. And now we have our pendulum rod here. Drop that through there. Hook it to the swing. Then you crimp that a little bit. And she's ready to go. So our next thing is, most people want to find out, well, how do you get the chain on? I will admit, normally I like to put the chain on before I install it in the clock. And if you want to take a look at some other videos, you'll see that's how I install. I'll usually show you how to install it both ways. But this way, we're going to install it. And what you do is you need to find out which direction it needs to turn. So this first one is turning this way. So because of it turning this way, you want to drop that chain in the first hole and come down. Now it's starting to catch good, and this is big enough I can get my finger in there. But what you normally do is take your screwdriver into the next hole and start turning it. Then you turn your clock at the same time. Once you have a good catch, start straightening your clock up quite a bit, because you want that thing to catch and drop down and not get tangled up in the gears. So we have a pretty good amount of it out. Have it in, and now I do a 50-50 split, put both ends of the chain the same length, and this way you have enough weight, it should hold it on there when you're trying to get the other chain in. So let's check it out and see which way this other one goes. So you can see it's turning around this way. So you'd put the chain in on this side so it can come up and around. I see it's coming out the back, so obviously it's not going in where it's supposed to, so now I need to work it out of there. There we go. Here it's dropping down like it's supposed to. "50-50 split." So there we got them both on. So there we go. The one that won't pull, it's the one that gets the hook. The one that pulls, it's the one that gets the ring. In this case, it's a square. Before I install the Cuckoo box into this clock, I went ahead and wiped this down with a damp paper towel, and now I'm going to give it a good waxing to make it look new again, because it's kind of dead looking, and wax will really help this. Well, there's one coat of wax on there. This is really sucking it in, so I'm going to probably give it another 1 or 2 coats of wax with this. It's really thick, but it does squirt out, so hopefully we'll get enough wax, and I'm going to call it moisture in this clock, that'll shine back up again. I'm not worried so much as the shine as I am the protection of it. By the way, this clock comes with the book. It's just tacked in the front of this clock here where you don't see it, but it gives you the story of the clock, I guess. Which I haven't read it, so I can't even help you on, this might tell you the history of this clock. It comes with a nice little thing that you can, if you were reading too long, you can mark your place in the book. Sweet. Okay, got it all waxed. There's not a shine on it, but it is soaked in quite well. We have this storybook that I was showing you. That there's two they're not staples, but 2 deals that, so you can tuck it in here. 2 of these things in here. That way it stays with the clock. How cool is that? So let's go ahead and put the clock in here and get it all put back together again. So I'll put these 2 screws up here in first, and we'll put the 2 bottom ones in. And we'll go ahead anytime put that plate back on that hangs the clock. Now I'm ready to hang the clock, but I will admit I don't have the pendulum to this clock, so I'm going to use a regular Cuckoo Clock pendulum. But by looks of what I've seen online, all I have to do is cut this bird out. Obviously not this bird. And I don't need this piece of the wing up here. And that's what the pendulum looks like. So all I have to do is on the back side I'd have to put the stick in here in order, or the metal piece, and then the stick for the pendulum stick, so that way I'll have the clock look just like it's supposed to. So here's one waxed and one not waxed. So the waxed one looks like a brand new weight, and it doesn't really matter whether you wax them or not, but that's a nice way of, besides cleaning the dust, if you ever put these away, this clock away for some reason or another, and it's around moisture, they're not going to rust. And these are porous. I just waxed that one, and it's going to soak in to the cone anyway, and hopefully look new for quite a while. I don't know how you'd measure this clock, but if you're going to try to hit that bird up there, it's about 20 inches, I would say. And approximately 15 inches that way. Well, I hope you enjoyed the New England clock, and to see how to take it apart, maybe find out something about it altogether. To me, it was a very simple works movement in the clock to work on, as you've seen in the video here. So if you happen to get one and get it for a fair price, which I felt I got a screaming deal compared to what you see on eBay, screaming deal. Anyway, there's the clock. Totally love it. So anyway, go ahead and subscribe if you'd like. Why? Because it's free. And leave me a comment. Are you working on a clock? And let me know. I read those. I try to get back to all of them. Have a little problem right now because I'm so busy, but it'll take me a while, but I'll get to them. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. God bless, and until next time, or until our next clock to work on, and maybe learn from it, we'll see you later. So what did I do today? I carved my pendulum bird.